Welcome again to my haiku book, haiku workbook. We discussed in the last session some of the haiku of Basho, Busan, and Issa, the three great Japanese haiku poets. I'd like to talk about their haiku and also again read some of their haiku and tell you more about them. Basho was born near Kyoto, Japan, and I told you he was part of a samurai family. His siblings became farmers, while Basho became really working for a local lord's son and grew interested in literature. After his employer, the young lord's dearly death, Basho left the castle and moved to Kyoto, where he studied with Kigin, a distinguished local poet. And it's interesting to note that during these early years, Basho studied Chinese poetry and Taoism, and also soon began writing haikai no renga, a form of linked verses composed in collaboration. I'll read you a few poems of Basho again and some new ones. Old pond, a frog jumps in, the sound of water. You can visualize the old pond and a frog that jumps in, and then you can feel as if you can hear the sound of the music of the water, of the frog jumping in. Or this other haiku of Basho's, on a bare branch, a crow lands, autumn dusk. You can see the bare branch and the crow that alights on the branch. And Basho wants you to know that this is autumn and it's dusk in autumn. So you can see what he has written. And then Busan, the artist, poet and artist, born outside Osaka and moved to Tokyo, at that time Edo, to study both painting and haiku. Like his literary hero Basho, Busan traveled widely through Japan, publishing notes from his journeys under the name Busan. He is also known as one of the great haiku masters, and his work is generally regarded as more sensuous and reflecting his dual career as a painter, more painterly, for example, than Basho's. Busan was also influenced by Chinese poetry. Busan, so, is the artist. I'll read a few of his haiku again. The whole sky in a wide field of flowers, one tulip. Again, you can see the image, the whole sky In other words, like a field of flowers in a whole sky. And then he focuses on one tulip. In other words, it's probably a whole field of tulips, and he focuses on one of them. Again, you can see the image, the colors, and you know that it's probably summer. Evening breeze. Water laps the legs of the blue heron. There's the image again. You know it's evening. And the heron seems to be close to the water's edge, because he says water laps the legs. And you know what kind of a bird this is. Again, it's so descriptive. It's in the eve, and you see the blue heron and where he stands. Again, a brilliant image we can experience also. And then Isa, the humanist. He had a different name. Kobayashi Yataro. But he eventually took the pen name Isa, which means cup of tea, or according to poet Robert Haas, a single bubble in steeping tea. His father, as I mentioned before, was a farmer. His mother died when he was young, so he was raised by his grandmother. His father remarried, and Isa did not get along too well with his stepmother or stepbrother, eventually becoming involved in disputes over his father's property. So when Isa was 14, he left home to study haiku. And he spent years traveling and working until returning to Kashiwabara in the early 1810s. In this city, his life was marked by sorrow. The death of his first wife and 3 children, an unsuccessful second marriage, the burning down of his house, and a 3rd marriage. Isa's haiku are as attentive to the small creatures of our world, mosquitoes, cats, bats, as they are tinged with sorrow and an awareness of the nuances of human behavior. In addition to haiku, Isa wrote pieces that intertwined prose and poetry, including Journey of My Father's Last Days and The Year of My Life. Here is again 2 haikus I will read from Isa. Deer licking, first frost from each other's coats. So descriptive. You can see the deer licking frost from the coats of each other, so we know this is winter, because haiku always speaks of the season, and in some way we will know when it is, whether it's summer, spring, autumn, or winter. So here you can picture these two deer licking the cold frost. Very descriptive. And then this other one. What a strange thing to be alive beneath cherry blossoms. Again, here we know that this is spring, and he's probably feeling the magic of being alive and sitting beneath cherry blossoms. So here again, we see a beautiful image of spring, and he feels that it's a strange thing that he's alive and sitting under cherry blossom trees.